Alyssa Mahadeo, journalist and community reporter, and I dedicate my... I don't know about you, but I'm tired of all the fairy tale lifestyles that people seem to be living on social media. Girl, you did not wake up like that. I'm interested in the genuine connections, the honest opinions, and the real uncut version of your true self. This show is about keeping it 100% real, deconstructing who we are and what we're all about. Join me as we sit down with individuals to discuss the personal struggles, the many challenges, and the moments that define us on this journey of self-discovery. Let's be real, life isn't fair and people make mistakes, but every opportunity is a learning experience. Let's discover the truth together right here on Real Talk. Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Real Talk, everyone. I am your host, Alyssa Mahadeo, guys, and thank you again for joining us here on the MyTCN TV network. Guys, today we have a great show. I'm super excited. I have my first guest for the year, actually, because I haven't had guests since the beginning of the year. But can you guys believe that we're already 3 months into the year? Literally, the month is finished next week. Yeah. That's a reality check for you. I hope everyone is keeping on top of their New Year's resolutions, their goals, their whatever they want to call it, because apparently we can't say words like that. You know, like resolutions aren't real and goals and just achievements. But I mean, live your life. Do what you need to do. Make sure that you're planning for success. Plan for the year. Do all of the things, and then just make sure that at the end of the year you feel better about this year than you did last. Especially if last year was not a great year for you. So today on my show, my guest for today is a poet. She's a spoken word artist and a published author, and also she is the survivor of sexual abuse. Her name is Breanna Chanelle. So today on the show, the topic that we are going to cover is around the topic of sexual abuse. Last year we started the Me Too movement. And a lot of women came forward with their stories of just, it's very unfortunate to hear the stories that some of these women have told. And also the fact that they've kept quiet about it for so many years. So that is something that we are going to kind of shed some light on. We're going to be discussing. Breanna is going to be sharing her own personal experience with sexual abuse. So she's going to be a little bit vulnerable today on the show with us. She's also going to be talking about her book that she published called 1993, which, again, very, very creative title. When I saw it, I was like, oh, I get it. And it is a poetic autobiography. So because she is a spoken word artist, she is also going to be sharing, maybe she'll share some stuff from the book itself. So she is currently pursuing her master's degree in social work at the University of Windsor. She works as the project coordinator for the Black Youth Resilience Project, and she is the founder of Soul Tree Committee, which is a committee movement with a vision to strengthen the physical, mental, and emotional and economical health of communities all over the world. So when we come back, our guests will join us after the break, but make sure that you guys stay tuned, and also make sure that you give us a call if you have any comments. Please leave them in the description or leave them down below under the video. And please stay tuned. You're watching Real Talk.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk, and I'm your host, Alyssa Mahadeo, guys. Today on the show, I'm joined by guest Breanna Chanelle. Breanna is here. She is a spoken word artist, a poet, and also a survivor of sexual abuse. Breanna is here to share her story. You guys know that I love to talk about interesting topics, also topics that aren't normally discussed in the mainstream, again, because there's a lot always around it when we talk about things like sexual abuse, harassment, just the things that people deal with, even things like rape culture, which is something that we're actually going to talk about today on the show. And again, they're very sensitive topics. And I also want to make sure that you guys understand that we're not we're not professionals. We're not experts on the ideas. But these are things that I find that more people need to be discussing, because if we're not talking about it, we're not looking at ways to solve the problems. Mm-hmm. So, Breanna, please tell the audience, thank you again for coming on the show, but please let us know a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself and what your story is.
Right. So, like you said, my name's Breanna Chanelle. I am a poet, a spoken word artist. It's so weird talking about myself. An author, the founder of Soul Tree Community, social worker, believer in Jesus Christ. I am a hopeful romantic.
I like that.
I am. Yeah, that's.
I like that.
There's more,
romantic.
but the list goes on.
So tell us a little bit about how you kind of got started with poetry and spoken word. When did you start writing?
So I've been writing. This is gonna sound so cliche. I've been writing my whole life, but I feel like I really started taking writing more seriously near the end of high school, and like in the beginning of like my undergrad. I remember when I was younger, like in elementary school, we had like a writing contest where you had to like write a short story, and I wrote a story, and my teacher like had to call my parents because they wanted to check if everything was good at home because the story was just that good.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I think that really sparked me wanting to write more. But yeah, I've generally always been into writing. And then when I went through my experience with sexual abuse, I think I got more into it because it was an outlet for me. But yeah.
What was your story about that they had to call your parents?
To be honest, I actually don't remember. I was actually looking for it in my, I think it was like a godfather, like stealing a child or something.
Oh,
like,
wow. So your imagination has just been wild since the beginning.
Yeah.
And you know what? As a writer myself, I always talk about, whenever I have writers on the show, I always get so excited because I'm like, oh my God, we're like kindred spirits.
Twinsies.
Exactly. So, and like a lot of our writing journeys kind of start the same, where we've always been writing. I was actually reflecting on this the other day, but we taught, when we were in elementary school, our teachers always used to make us do reflection time, or we would have like writing, and we would always have to write some type of story and like draw some picture, and it would always be like, make sure you include pictures, numbers, and words in there.
I remember that. I remember.
So, and I used to enjoy those classes, but I also, because it's homework and you're like, I'm not really trying to do this. But now that I think about it, I think a lot of our writing skills were kind of born during those times. Yeah. And then we kind of expanded and elaborated more when we got to high school, because we had to start writing a lot more, and then writing became something that we enjoyed.
Funny enough, I actually hated high school, like English class. I hated it. I didn't care about Shakespeare.
Really?
I didn't want no part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of English class, like I kind of wish I took a creative writing class, which I didn't do.
And my school had one.
Mine too.
Yeah, really. My school had, like, we had English, and we also had creative writing, which was great, because it was like, oh my God, creative writing class. Like, they allowed us to write stories and actually use our imagination. And I know a lot of people like hated Shakespeare. Like, they just could not deal with English class. But I actually enjoyed it. I was like,
good for you.
Yeah, I was one of those people that enjoyed it. I was like, I don't understand why people hate this. And it wasn't like I was like, oh my God, I love Shakespeare. It was kind of just like I enjoyed learning something different, because I was like I was used to reading novels and books and stuff like that. But I think it was the difference in the language that was like, okay, no, I have to understand it. It was kind of like I was determined to understand it.
I think by high school, I was at the point where I was like, I wasn't seeing myself in literature, and like I think Shakespeare was where I was like, okay, this is it.
People threw in the towel with Shakespeare. They were just like, we need to update this, guys. We need better books. We need to. We're like, who is learning Old English anymore that we need to know this?
Apparently, they're not even teaching cursive writing anymore. So.
That's the other thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not teaching us. So, I mean, even like journaling and things like that was probably something that you maybe got into, and that's kind of how maybe a lot of your stories evolved.
Yeah, I always journaled. Like, I feel like I have like a million books that were supposed to be my diary.
Yeah.
But like they all are all like in different places.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been good at consistently journaling, which is
Mhm.
something that's kind of like a 2019 resolution for me, is to write every single day.
Mhm.
But I've always written, like, there would be times when I'd just be like washing dishes and like something will come to my head and I'm like, oh wait, I gotta write this down.
Yeah.
So it's never been like every single night or every morning I journal, but there's always been thoughts in my head that I would consistently have to run to write down.
Yeah, and I mean they help because I mean obviously when you write something like a book, once you put all those thoughts together, you can see them together as they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
It just there's something just so satisfying about that.
Yeah. I remember like when I would get those like urges to write, if I didn't like write that thing down, like it was the weirdest thing. Like I would like feel this weird like nauseous thing in my stomach until I wrote it down. Or like if I wrote it down and it was like the line for a poem, until I finished that poem, I'd like feel so unsettled. Like it was so weird.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I used to write like I'll write stories and stuff like that. And always have it. I have ideas like in the shower.
Yeah,
that's where you get
shower
most of it.
is where you
and I'm like,
get
do you know how hard it is to have
ideas.
inspiration in the shower because you cannot get out of the shower.
You're like writing on the glass.
And I'm just like, I guess that's where you can be most alone with your thoughts. So that's kind of where the most inspiration strikes. You're like, oh, you know, this would make a great story or plot. And you're just like, oh, this character would be amazing. You know? So even like the journey of journaling kind of started. I was talking about this the other day. It started in 2001 for me. And I think it was like 10 years old. So, you know, when you're like 10, what do you write about really? And I remember like my first diary entry was probably about a lamp that I got.
Was it a lava lamp?
No.
Oh.
It was just a really pretty looking lamp. And it was like an aesthetic to my room. And I was like, oh my God, this is so great. Like, and I think that was just where, you know, kind of sparked my love for all things like I'm like a housewife. You know,
you
just, like,
are
go
beautiful
to,
like a lamp.
But for real. And I think it was like, I really like this lamp. I need to tell you guys about it and to describe the lamp to you. And I need you to understand like the joy that this lamp brought me. And I was 10. So, I mean, my diary entries, I want to say, have gotten a lot better since then. You know, a lot of emotion, thoughts have gone into them. But again, I find it it's very therapeutic to journal.
100%.
So tell us a little bit before we get into our next segment, but a little bit about your book.
Yes.
What is this about?
So, okay, it's called 1993, and essentially it's a book of a compilation of poems. I separated it into 4 sections. The first section is Journeying Jelly, which just means traveling storyteller. The second section is Survivor Queen. Third section is Lover, and fourth section is XO. So the first section is just different stories that I've either heard people experience or I've experienced myself and just put all into poetry. So it's more like a storytelling / advocacy section. The second section is Survivor Queen, where I speak about sexual abuse and the different things that people go through as a result of sexual abuse that not a lot of people realize. And then the third section is Lover, and it just talks about the different ways that I've experienced love. So that's like through my parents, through my sisters, family, romantic. But I didn't really know nothing about romantic relationships when I wrote those, let's be real. And then the last one is called XO, and I used to do this thing where I would like write love letters to myself. So I flipped the love letters and addressed them to reader.
I really like that. I think more people should do that. I think that should be a resolution for this year. Actually,
it used to help me a
write
lot.
more love letters to yourselves, guys, because I think it's a very good in the practice of self-love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes we don't know what words we need to be told in order to feel better.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to actually incorporate that in our lives, to write love letters to yourself.
Yeah, and I think it also like instead of seeking that validation from outside,
you do it
you do it from
get
within.
It from
like
yourself.
you tell yourself that you did good today, or you know what
I appreciate that. And again, I think a lot more women, again, we talk about this on the show like regularly. This is always a topic on my show. But again, you gotta love yourself first. You can't expect other people to love you if you don't love yourself.
Amen to that. Yeah.
So we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna get more into Breanna's story. And she's going to share a little bit with her experience with sexual abuse and kind of what happened. And also we'll get into a little bit more kind of heavy topics with rape culture and things like that. So make sure that you guys stay tuned. If you have any comments or questions, be sure to leave them down below. And if we don't get to them during the show, we will try to do it after. But make sure that you stay tuned and you are watching Real Talk.
Hello, my name is Anisha, and I'm the production manager of TCN Network. Have you ever wanted to host your own show? Do you have a message to share? Well, you're in luck. We are looking for dynamic and unique individuals to host their own shows. We are seeking people who are committed, motivated, and energetic. Do you want to be the next Jimmy Fallon, Ellen DeGeneres, or Shane and Ryan from BuzzFeed Unsolved? Start here. Fill out the Propose a Show form on mytcntv.com. We're here to educate, support, and build the community. Can you lead by example? Go the extra mile and seek knowledge? Are you humble, disciplined, responsible, selfless, and enthusiastic? Those are our core values. And if you identify with them, you could be part of a growing network that focuses on positivity and uplifting our community. We can't wait for you to join us on TCN Network and hope to hear from you soon.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk, and I'm your host, Alyssa Mahadeo, guys, and I'm here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Today on the show, I have my guest, Breanna Chanelle, and Breanna is here. She is talking about her experience with sexual abuse, and you guys would have seen from the show, it says, the name of my show today is hashtag, or it's not hashtag Me Too. And I did that with, purpose, because I'm like, listen, we got to stop this.
Yeah.
I understand that this is a great movement that's actually started because it started to spark conversations surrounding different things like harassment, workplace harassment, and so many other, really, really like serious topics that need to be discussed amongst the general population, not just women. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate, you coming on today to show your own experience. So I guess we'll start with, how old were you when you kind of first experienced your trauma, I would call it?
So I was either 14 turning 15 or already 15 when my first experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you don't mind sharing, what exactly kind of happened?
So it was just molestation. So it was just touching
inappropriately.
Yeah.
So when you were 14, 15, did you know what was happening? Did you know it was wrong?
I knew what was happening and I knew it was wrong, but my body froze up. Like, I just froze up. Mm-hmm. So it was like this internal conversation where it's like, this is not supposed to be happening. Mm-hmm. I know this is not supposed to be happening because my parents have had conversations with me about this. Mm-hmm. But it's just like your mind and your body just aren't working in the same. And I think also for me, it was like, I want to believe that this isn't happening. So it's like that. So many thoughts, and like it's like your body is just not moving at the same pace as your mind.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, at you're 14, 15, like you're literally you're in middle school by then.
Yeah.
You're like now going into maybe high school, but when you think about it, as a girl too, like your body is now starting to develop. You're now starting to even become comfortable. Not even become comfortable because you're still trying to adapt to your new body and the way it's changed and things like that. And I'm sure you probably had to deal with that where you're just like I'm not even comfortable with myself yet and I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So did you tell anyone? Like did you discuss it with anyone or what happened?
Initially I didn't for a long time. Eventually I did. I spoke to my family about it, but for the longest time I didn't tell anybody. It was just me.
And why didn't you tell anybody?
I was just afraid, ashamed, and still trying to convince myself, even though it's obviously happened, still trying to convince myself that it didn't happen. And there was like you said, like at 14 or 15 is that time when your body's changing, and there's a lot of feelings, and this is why this topic is important, is because there's a lot of feelings that come and a lot of thoughts that come when you're sexually abused that nobody knows about until they experience it. And of course everybody experiences it different. So for me it was like, is it my fault? Like, is it because I did something that made me abusable? And then also, like, there was times when I was like, I literally felt like disgusting in my own body. Like, I didn't want this body anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, because you've been violated. You
Yeah.
feel defiled. You feel like people told you that this wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And it happened to you, and you're like, well, now how do I deal with it? Like, how do I like cleanse myself? How do I purify my own soul to feel comfortable again in the skin?
Yeah.
right? And I've never had an experience like this, so I can't relate to someone who has been abused. But I mean, I've been put in uncomfortable situations where, again, me as a woman feel like I shouldn't act, or I shouldn't dress a certain way, or I shouldn't look a certain way because someone is going to take advantage of me.
Yeah, and I think too, like I said earlier, like everybody goes through it differently. So me speaking about sexual abuse is not me speaking for all people who experience sexual abuse, and there's that common feeling of loss. It's like you lost something, and so you may not have experienced sexual abuse, but I'm sure you can identify with what it feels to lose something, and trying to get that thing back when it's not when you're not able to get it back, essentially.
Yeah, because now you just kind of have to learn how to cope. You have to deal with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part too when it comes to abuse, is that you have to. It's almost like you're coping with something, but you didn't put this on yourself.
Yeah,
it's like I'm carrying a burden that I didn't ask for, that nobody asked me if I wanted to carry, but now it's like I have to deal with it because I have to live with me.
Yeah. Did you think that if you told people about it, they wouldn't believe you?
I didn't think that they wouldn't believe me. No, like my family's pretty supportive, so I didn't think that they wouldn't believe me. I think for me it was really just not wanting to believe that it was true, and me thinking that if I didn't give a voice to it, then it would take away some of that trueness. I don't know. Yeah.
Like, so you were basically in denial about it, and like that's the thing, you didn't want to. If you didn't talk about it, it didn't really happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I can see how, again, at 14 or 15, that would be your mindset, because again, there's a lot of things that you're like, I'd rather just not talk about this.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so did you start writing as a way to kind of cope with your feelings?
Yeah. So like I said, I had been writing for a long time, but at that point it was like, okay, I have to release this somehow, because I mean there's that whole thing of like, I'm not telling, which means nobody can know that I'm hiding something. So that means that it has to be released, because if it's not released, then it'll show. So yeah, I definitely started writing more. And the funny thing is I didn't really necessarily write about my sexual abuse. I was just writing, and it felt like, I guess that expression, being able to voice my opinions, my thoughts. So though I wasn't telling my story, I was still speaking and felt like I had a voice. And that actually, I feel like what happened for me when it came to sexual abuse and expression is that because I didn't tell my story, I felt like I had to fight for everybody. Like if somebody was in an argument and I was like, no, this person's right, then I was the loudest. I felt like me defending other people was making up for me not defending myself, was making up for me freezing up, was making up for me not speaking up. Yeah.
I can see that, and that's very powerful. It's very powerful that you come into it with that kind of mindset, because again, you don't want to only advocate for yourself in that sense, because you realize, I'm pretty sure you realize, that you weren't the only one that was dealing with this. Like, and were there ever any times that, like, so you were molested, you were touched inappropriately, did you ever feel that it ever would escalate past that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. That was my biggest fear, because then I was like, well, then I really can't deny it.
Yeah. And then it's like, how do you defend yourself against something like that, especially as a young girl, right? When we talk about rape culture, so I should probably define what rape culture is first. So rape culture is a sociological concept of setting in which rape is pervasive and normalized due to societal attitudes about gender and sexuality. And I want to kind of bring the example of how this is most common in the Middle East. And I say that because, especially like in the Middle East, women are treated differently. Women are treated as prized possessions. And again, the more pure that you're seen to society, the more valuable you are. And it's always been that way, especially in the Middle East. And women have grown up very sheltered in West Indian culture, in East Indian culture, in Middle Eastern culture, because they're always just like, listen, if you do this, men are going to look at you a certain way and you're going to find yourself in problems. And women have been raised like this for generations, and we've been very scared to go out into the world. It's like, you shouldn't be walking alone at night. You shouldn't be doing certain things. You should be dressing a certain way. And you're just trying to live your life at the end of the day. I've actually been reading Michelle Obama's
I
autobiography,
haven't
Becoming.
started it.
And she talks about this experience where she lived, again, Southside Chicago, and she talks about her experience as she got older. You know, you're just trying to fit into your skin. You're trying to understand the skin that you're in.
Yep.
And then you also realize that there are certain things that you can and cannot do because you're going to be viewed a certain way. And so when we talk about this too, there was this commercial, I'm sure you've seen it, about so Gillette dropped a commercial this week about toxic masculinity.
Is it the one where the little boy is shaving his face?
I don't think so.
No, I saw one, but I don't think it's the same one.
Okay, so I did want to bring it up on the show today though. But there was a commercial that Gillette did, and they basically call out toxic masculinity. So basically, men who are bullying other men or women, prejudice, mansplaining, catcalling, any negative actions that men have done, harassment, things like that. Things that, you know what it is? It's that they think it's very innocent and that it's supposed to be playful, but it doesn't always come across that way to women. You don't know a woman's experience. You don't know what she's had to deal with. And I'm sure you've experienced this in your own life. Like, you don't know what people have gone through for you to come at them a certain way and have them be okay with it. Be like, oh, girl, no, I was just joking. You know, I'm sure people have told you that. Yeah. Right?
Even, and I find that now as I'm progressing and becoming older, and especially because I'm in social work, there's a lot of things that people will say that I'm like, that is super triggering, and I have to like wheel back and be like, okay, Breanna, like, deal with it in a way that's not like you, not the 14-year-old you screaming, and like the 25-year-old you stating an opinion.
And you really have to step back. And I know a lot of people I've spoken to about this have said the exact same thing, where it's just like those triggering thoughts that you're just like, listen, can't say anything. And the fact that you can't say anything is the bigger problem here.
I don't think that, for me, I don't think it's that I'm a very, like, opinionated person. I say what I gotta say, and I don't care what you feel about it. But for me, I don't think it's a matter of not saying it. It's a matter of knowing when to say it. Because oftentimes, that time where you're about to engage in that conversation, you know the person that you're speaking to is not going to say anything that's going to make you feel better. And in fact, it'll probably make you more escalated.
It's going to make it worse.
So for me, it's a part of self-care to know which conversations to engage to and when not.
Choosing your battles. So we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to really talk, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to Shadow Auto.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk, and I am your host, Alyssa Mahadeo. Guys, thank you again for joining us today on my TCN TV network. Today, my guest is Breanna Chanelle. We're having some amazing conversation. I'm enjoying, again, about just the experiences that she's come through. And, you know, at the end of the day, how we need to be able to shed light on these things, because it's not only me or Breanna that's experiencing these things. It's women around the world, and a lot of women have I'd rather stay silent instead of dealing with it. And it causes more harm than it does good.
It really does. And it's not just one person that's being harmed, unfortunately.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like one person's getting hurt and be like, okay, well, it's okay. It's not affecting the masses. You know what I mean? And still, even then, we don't want that one person to have to suffer in silence. And again, I find a lot of more spoken word artists are coming out and sharing their experiences through that forum. I remember at the showcase when we had Vanessa showcase that we did, people of color. A lot of the women that spoke about their topics was very focused around their own experience.
Yeah.
You could tell. I'm like, you don't get that kind of emotion
Yeah.
from, you don't imagine it.
Mm-hmm.
It happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to kind of get into you being vulnerable and how you decided that this was something you needed to share with the world and that you had to talk about.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm a very vocal person. So for me, it was just like, this is happening to so many people. And like you mentioned, West Indian culture, like I'm from the Caribbean. I'm from Grenada. Well, my parents are from Grenada. I still claim it. But and it's so common. And it's so common that it's like, I feel like it's like sexual abuse happens and people don't even know that it's sexual abuse because it's so common.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just like this. First of all, this experience that I went through is not going to go in vain because all this pain, all these tears is not for nothing.
Exactly.
And that's why essentially I decided to write the book, because I felt like not only in regards to sexual abuse, but in other areas, there are so many things that people go through that they think that they're alone in. And it's like, if you were to only know how many other people are going through this, it would be so much more helpful, because it's like you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. A lot of people have already worked through some of the issues that you have.
Exactly.
Again, there are people who are older than you in this world who still have not confronted some of the feelings they've had because, again, they're too scared, or they're just like, no, I shouldn't talk about this, or, it's shameful.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been shamed because of, their experiences and things like that, and be like, and a lot of women have ended up in situations that they didn't want to be in. In regards to relationships, there are a lot of women still in abusive relationships, and they just stay there. They're like, no, it's just easier to stay than it is to leave. So I wanted you to tell me a little bit about how being vulnerable has allowed you to connect with people, and how it's changed your relationships with people that you've been with.
Yeah, so it's been a little bit of both. I think that when you're vulnerable, you're opening yourself up to people's opinions, and those opinions can be super triggering. And I feel like there's a lot of people that I may have been close with before that I kind of pushed away from, because I'm like, you just don't get it, and I don't know if I can be around that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like there are so many people that have either inboxed me on Facebook or Instagram and said, like, you are so inspiring, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for being open and vulnerable. And like, generally speaking, on my Instagram, like, I'm very open and vulnerable. Like, if I'm having a bad day, I'm like, this wasn't a good day. But and I think that people appreciate that, because people are looking for something to connect to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
People appreciate hearing the hardships that you've gone through, because it makes you feel more human.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if your life is perfect and you just live in glitz and glamour all day, then people are just gonna be like, oh, well, her life is perfect. Like, I can't relate to her.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, I'm out here struggling.
Exactly.
I'm grinding every day just to wake up in the morning. I'm dealing with depression, anxiety.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. Like, when people get to a certain level, it's like we no longer show those bad sides. We only show the good. But like, I feel like that's when, for me, like, especially when, like, even when it comes to music artists or anything, if I can't connect, if I don't feel like I could understand, then I'm not there with you.
Yeah.
So that's something with me when it comes to my poetry and my writing and just anything I do, really. I want people to feel like they can connect always.
And we kind of briefly mentioned this, but like, when something triggers you, how is it that you deal with it? And I know I'm sure it's changed, because I know there's some things where there's probably times you probably just want to lash out. Yeah. But how did you deal with it?
I still have those times when I want to lash out.
Yeah.
And I think that I've gotten a lot better. My parents hold me accountable a lot, because like there's times when like I'll say something to my sister, or I'll say something to another family member, and my dad or my mom will be like, you didn't have to say it like that. So I think that having that accountability of saying, okay, this triggered you, it's all about how you react to it. And I think one of the biggest things is recognizing the things that trigger you. So, I mean, and it takes a long time.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been a while of recognizing that engaging in these conversations is triggering. So I'm not going to engage in these conversations when I've had a bad day.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to only engage in these conversations when I I don't know, I don't have work the next day or something like that. Some like
when
just
I can
knowing
work through it,
exactly, knowing when, like, and I won't bring it up, the whole surviving R. Kelly thing, like that was super triggering for me. And I watched 3 episodes and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, and you shouldn't do it to yourself because you know what it's doing to you inside. Like, you just don't feel great about it, and you're just like, oh my goodness, like, it's gonna cause you more problems, more harm than you want.
So I'm a separate. I still want to watch it, but I'm not going to. Like I said, I'm not going to watch it on a night before I have work. Like, I'll watch it on, like, I don't know,
when you can break it down
exactly,
later. Yeah. So how has your experience affected relationships and, like, dating and things like that? Because like, for me, like, I'll share my own personal experience. I always remember growing up that my parents used to tell me, you know, they would tell me about the same things, like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, or, you know, you should just be safe to be safe. And I know for me, one of the big things was I hated when people touched me, and I did not allow them to touch me. And I was very aware of bodily contact, so it was like physical contact in any kind of way, even if it was like a hug, and it's like, it's still positive, but it was like, no, did I allow you into my space for you to hug me? And that was always a thing for me. And so when I actively wanted to start dating and things like that, it was something that I always had in the back of my mind. I'm like, am I gonna let him touch me though? You know? And that was something for me.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, like, I'm gonna speak about friendships as well as romantic relationships.
Yeah.
I think that for me, I and I'm getting better, but I often have a very difficult time with male authority figures telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Even if it's something for my good, just because they're telling me, I feel like it's control.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've had to work through in my mind, and it's just a lack of trust, really.
Yeah.
But I've gotten so much better. Like, before, somebody would be like, tie your shoelace, and I'd be like, why are you telling me to tie my shoelace? But I've gotten a lot better. And I feel like in regards to both friendships and romantic relationships, I realized through some, like, self-reflection that I gravitate towards people that need help. And that's, once again, that whole thing of, like, wanting to help everybody else, because I feel like I didn't help myself. So I feel like I gravitate to people a lot who need me to help them. And that's something that I'm working through right now, and like, how to balance that out, because I mean, vulnerability goes 2 ways.
Yeah.
It can't always be people needing me.
Yeah.
Like, I have to be able to need somebody too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so how does that, I mean, how does it help? I think my question really was, do people ever come to you in a time of need? So, like, say they're currently going through something and you've talked about it, or they've seen you talk about it, or they follow you on Instagram or on social media in any sense. But has anyone ever, like, really kind of come to you, be like, listen, this is happening to me right now?
No one has come to me with it happening at the present moment. Thankfully, I would get to that place where I can deal with that. As of right now, I don't know how I would react to that.
That's something, like, how would you react to somebody if someone
yeah.
came to you and they're like, listen, this is happening to me right now and I need help?
I would definitely have to check myself for biases, because as a survivor, hearing a survivor's story, there's often that, like, mirroring effect where it's like you're not even listening to their story, you're seeing yourself.
Yeah.
So, and that's not helpful. But like I said, I'm in the social work field and youth work field, and I used to work at a youth shelter, and I remember one time this youth was just going through it, and she literally broke down in my arms and said he was fixing my pajamas, and just went into the story about how one of her family members sexually abused her. And in that moment, I was just like, literally having conversations in my head, like, okay, Breanna, don't be triggered. Okay, Breanna, it's not about you. Okay, like, I was having those conversations in my head. And I mean, I was able to work through it, but it was rough.
Yeah,
it was really rough.
I can see how it would be. And again, it's very, because you've dealt with it yourself. Yeah. It's not like you're a social worker who's never had the experience.
Exactly.
You're a social worker who's been there. You've done that. You've literally had the same conversations that she has and thought the same things that she has.
Yeah.
And so for you to have to now help her deal with that, for you, it takes that much more effort than it would anyone who is impartial to a situation like that. So we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up this really great conversation we've been having here today. So, guys, make sure that you stay tuned for the last segment. You're watching Real Talk. Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk, and today we are wrapping up the conversation here today on Not Me Too. That is the show today. Guys, we've had Breanna Chanelle. She's been here with us talking about her experience, things that she's gone through, things that she's worked through, and, you know, in general, the discussions that we've had today kind of, I hope, have helped the audience to, you know, shed a little bit more light on the situation that a lot of people are still dealing with and are working through today themselves. So Breanna, on the break, you just talked about the story that you just shared about the young girl that came to you, and the thing that you said about not crying. Like, can I cry? And you know what? Like, as someone who is very emotional herself, I would have cried 100%.
I 100% cried. And I think that people think that, and I mean, everybody's different. I think that people assume that if you're crying, that means the person doesn't feel supported. But some people need that. Some people are like, I just want somebody to cry with me.
To make it okay to be crying.
Yeah.
Because, again, I'm the kind of person who will not cry in public, but ask me behind the doors what's happening. I'm crying.
Well, I'll cry in public. Tears. I'll cry in private. I will cry. I will cry. And I'm not ashamed.
And you know what? And crying does so much for you, just because it just allows you to, like, take, like, it's like a well of emotion that you just had. It's been building up, and now it's too much. Damn, it's broken.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about the healing process, because I think that's really, really important in everything. And again, if you are someone who is dealing with this right now, like, how to get help or how to start working through the things that you are confronted with. Again, everyone is dealing with different challenges, different obstacles in their life, and the way that we deal with it is very different. But I think the most important thing is that we make ourselves comfortable in the space that we're in. So how did you start working through your own healing journey?
Yeah, so you used the right word. It's a journey. And I think for a long time I thought that I was healing, but I was really just suppressing. Because like I went through post-secondary, I went through high school, I went through all of that. And I was like, I'm good. Like, I graduated.
I'm good.
Like,
I'm blocked.
I got this. Yeah. But then those triggers come and you realize that you're not good.
Yeah.
So for me, I think my healing process is actually pretty fresh. The surviving process, I feel like, has come to an end. And now I'm for me, a lot of it is just my relationship with God. And aside from that, like, just accepting that, I think for a long time I was hoping that someone would come in and swoop me up and save me, and like I was having temper tantrums about, like, why is my healing not important to other people? And it's like, at the end of the day, your healing has to be important to you, and that's all that really matters. Can't nobody do the healing work but you. So I think that's where my healing process has really begun, is in that realizing that me healing is not on anybody else. It's on me. And sorry, I forgot the question.
So no, well, it was talking about your healing journey, and, you know, kind of how you got to this point. Like, when did you start realizing that you needed to start working through it, and you needed to start confronting it and dealing with it head on? Because again, like you said, you suppressed it first, and then you started walking around like, nah, I'm a boss bitch. I got
Yeah.
this. And I can relate to that because I have done that to deal with things, just to like suppress. Like, listen, this is not gonna get to me. This is not gonna affect me. This is not gonna become me. And I've felt that in different avenues of my life where I've just been like, nah, I'm a boss. I got this.
Yeah.
But you're not, and you realize that
you're not a boss.
when you come
You're
to
just
that realization that you're like, okay, you need to chill.
Yeah.
You need to step back and actually really assess what's going on. So when did that moment come for you?
I don't think I can pinpoint the exact moment. I think it would probably be closer to like me graduating my undergrad. And I think that a lot of that realization came from, once again, me being in the social work field and being like to people like, oh, like there's this therapist available, there's this available, there's this, and I'm just like, but I've never used any of that. Like,
So
why
you're
am
giving
I
advice to people, yeah.
why am I recommending these things when like I need to use them? And I think that's really like, I always want to be an example. I don't want to just say things and not apply them. So if I'm going to tell somebody, oh, you should try counseling. Counseling's really good. How do I know? I never tried counseling.
It's true. You
Right?
can't really, yeah.
Exactly.
And I appreciate that. And did you end up seeking out counseling?
I've been to a counselor once. Didn't have the best experience. I'm currently working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the counseling experience, like I tried counseling for the first time last year by myself. I was just like, this is something I should try. 'Cause I'm like, I feel like I could benefit from it. And I feel like even if you're not dealing with anything in your life, you can benefit from counseling. And that's what I learned from my experience. And I only went like 3 times, but I was just like, this is amazing. Why don't more people do this?
Yeah.
And I know it's because it's expensive. A lot of people have come to me with that. They're like, Alyssa, well, I can't go and see a therapist because it's expensive. And while I know that it's expensive, you still get your hair done. You still get your nails done. You still spend money at Sephora. You spent $200 at Sephora, but you can't spend money on your mental health.
And that's the thing, because it's not a visible thing, like, because, you know, getting your hair done, you see the results right away.
Yeah.
Like with therapy and with with therapy, you don't see the result right away, or you're not going from like 0 to 100 in one therapy session. It's going to take time. And I mean, we live in a society of instant gratification, so if you can't see your money, you know, producing something right away, it's like, I'm not gonna do that.
No, and I saw the benefits of it. Like even now I see the benefits of going to those 3 sessions that I did, because I'm like, I didn't do it like every 2 weeks. It was like once a month, so it was only a once a month investment, really. But when I did it, the questions that I was being asked were things I was not asking myself, and no one else was asking me. And like even the perspective that I was being given, again, was not something that I was being offered or was being, that I could see myself. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? You know, kind of thing. Like it's the funny thing is, it's usually right there in front of you, but you can't see it unless someone tells you. And unless someone shows you that, listen, you really do have this. You just need to confront it and deal with it. And I'm saying, like, I always advocate for counseling and therapy, because I'm like, I see so many people in my life that can benefit from it, and when they start going, they're just like, oh my God.
And I think people also need to realize that, like, trying, like, therapists is like finding, we're gonna keep it on the hair, it's like finding a good hairstylist. Like,
it is.
It's not necessarily gonna be the first time you go it's gonna be the most amazing therapist. Like I said, the first time I went, I was not pleased, but that is not gonna stop me from trying to seek out the one that fits. Because once you find the one that fits, I feel like that's when, like, it.
And that's what I thought too, because I struggled, because I was like, I don't know, I'm not gonna ask anybody for their recommendation on a therapist.
I need a therapist.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna ask someone. I'm not gonna go to someone and be like, you know what, could you recommend me a good therapist? Like, I didn't do that. I was like,
which is not a bad thing if you do
no,
that.
But that was me for myself, and I know, I'm sure a lot of people have this experience where, like, I can't let people know that I'm going to seek help. You know, because there's a stigma behind that. So, for me, I did my own research, and I looked up some people, and I kind of booked, like, some phone consultations with them, and, like, the questions that I was asked on the phone, like, for me, I was lucky. Like, it was the first person I reached out to. I was like, I got a good feeling about this one. Let's go here. And the phone conversation that I had set up, the questions that I was being asked, and, like, the way I felt after the conversation was good for me. So I was like, maybe I should go meet this person. And that's kind of how that happened for me. But again, like, I know a lot of people come from this place where, like, no, I don't need therapy. I'm fine.
And it's a very, like, I can speak for the Caribbean or the many black cultures. A lot of black cultures, they don't see, first of all, they don't see mental health. Second of all,
if you have mental health, you're crazy.
Pretty much. And, like, the idea of asking for help externally is just, like, you're about to embarrass the whole family. Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Keep your business inside. Like,
Yeah.
we don't
We don't have problems.
Exactly. So and it's understandable why it's so difficult for people to ask for that help.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we need to like move away from those very toxic cultural behaviors,
Stigmas, prejudices that
Yeah.
we've just been brought up with. It's
Yeah.
like, listen, you don't have any problems. You're gonna deal with your nonsense by yourself.
Exactly. What do you have to complain about?
Yeah, you're young. You have nothing to complain about. I wanted to talk a little bit about the work that you do. You're project coordinator at the Black Youth Resilience Project,
I
and you also
am.
You're the founder of Sultry Community. So
I am.
what are these two things?
So I recently was hired on as the project coordinator for the Black Youth Resilience Project, which is a youth-led research project done by a company called Revive with partnering support from East Metro Youth Services.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, it's a 3-year-long youth-led research project. It's community-based research, and we're looking into the gaps in services specifically for Black youth facing multiple barriers. So that's barriers to employment, barriers to education, criminal justice involvement. The list is
Very
long.
long,
Mental
yeah.
health. So it's a 3-year study, and the goal is that at the end of it, we will come up with a service delivery framework that would help the youth service sector serve Black youth facing those barriers more effectively.
Okay, that's cool. And that's based out of Toronto, or
Yeah, so it's based in Toronto.
okay. And then tell me about the Sultry Community.
So Sultry Community is my own little passion project. It started out as a discussion group. And now it's been moved into different things. But essentially, the idea is that creating or helping communities to create more healthy communities themselves. So something that I find is that a lot of times when people are trying to help communities or help groups, is that they go in with what they think the group needs. But with Sultry Community, I think that when it's giving the opportunity to speak and to express themselves, communities have the ability to heal themselves because they know what they need best.
Yeah.
So we curate events and initiatives that really give voice to what the community needs from their point of view, not from a backstander's point of view.
Yeah, and I think again, people don't appreciate. This is gonna sound so terrible, but a lot of people don't appreciate like professional advice from people who haven't experienced the same
They
things that
don't,
they have.
and that's it.
They're like, you can't understand me, like you can't relate to me on that level because
Mhm.
you've never dealt with it. And,
Yeah.
I can see how people could relate to you more because you're sharing your own story, you're sharing your own experience. You're like, listen, I've come through this. I'm still dealing with it. Like it's not something that goes away overnight.
Yeah, at all.
Right? And I appreciate that again that you came here to share that story with us today. So I think my final question really would be, what would you like to share with women or girls who are maybe dealing with this right now? If they happen to see this, what would you like to share with them?
Woo, that's deep. What I would like to share with women experiencing any sort of abuse is, 1, it's not your fault. 2, you don't have to silence yourself. And 3, be patient with yourself, love yourself at every step of the journey.
Thank you so much for that.
No
Can I
problem.
hold your hand? Thank you so much, Breanna, for coming on the show today. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate that you came here to be vulnerable because I understand what it takes to want to share things that you're like your innermost, deepest thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's really, really not easy to come and do that because it's just like, no, people are going to judge me and they're going to judge me hard. But there's a strength in doing it.
Yeah.
There's a strength in doing so many things, guys. So thank you again. Thank you, Breanna. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching the show.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching the show, guys, today. If you had any questions, make sure that you leave them in the comments below. I will try to get to them. We will try and make sure that we get to them. If you have any questions for Breanna, all of her social media links are listed in the description box below. So make sure that you guys do check her out. She is working in social work now. She's in the field to help you guys. So
Yes.
again, if you are dealing with something like that, please do feel free to reach out to somebody for that help.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you again for watching another edition. It has been another edition of Real Talk, and we're starting the year off strong, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you again next week. Bye.